Let's just start this video off by saying one thing. You're going to be seeing this shirt a lot in the video because I've recorded a lot of this on the same day. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new series, I think, maybe, where I am working on something new and it could go further if people like the game and it does well. Who knows? So what is the game? I mentioned in the last video I kind of want to make something that I enjoy and that I enjoy playing with people, and for that I'm making a local co-op game, or trying to anyway. The idea of the game is to be an Overcooked style game where you are wizards fighting off enemies and you have like ridiculous spells and everything kind of has that nice Overcooked cartoonish look which I really enjoy. And I thought this would be a really fun thing to work on. If it goes further, that just depends on if my friends enjoy the game and if I enjoy making the game. And a little spoiler alert, currently I'm really enjoying making the game. And something I thought would be important to talk about for this series is what engine am I using? Now, I've been using Unreal Engine a lot recently because of university, so for the past 3 years I've been gathering experience with Unreal. And I think it could be fun to do it in Unreal, honestly, and I was considering it for a while. But then I went and had a look at my old friend Unity, which I've not used for a while. Overall, if I type in how to do local co-op in Unreal and how to do local co-op in Unity, Unreal probably has a video from, like the first video is probably from a few years ago, and Unity probably has a video going up like right now about local co-op. And that was the main deciding factor for me. I want something that I can get support with, because I'm not someone who can do it all on my own. I do need support, which is a really key thing I've learned these past few years, is that I do need support and it's good to use support. And that's the main reason I'm going to be using Unity. With that, I've not done a devlog for a while, so hopefully you like the style. Let me know if you do by liking the video and subscribing and leaving a comment. Hopefully it all goes well. They'll get better as we go on. But yeah, thank you everyone and enjoy the video. So in the first week of this game's development, I had a few things I wanted to do, which was mainly set up the project itself. Using Unity version 2020, I could possibly upgrade it if I decide to carry on with this. We're using the new input system to handle like doing local multiplayer, and I used a tutorial from Dampos, who's a friend of mine who I did videos with, who I'll link below. And basically what can happen now is 4 people at most currently can join the game. More can also join if I've put a limit on it. When a player joins, it will say what control type they're using and what player number they are, just because it looks more interesting. And I've got basic player movement that was from a Unity given script online. Again, this will be changed in the future, but for the prototype before, I'll just use some stuff that Unity's given, just so I've got like the basics working. I'm also using Pro Builder to like generate quick environments. I've never used it before, but I've seen people like talk about it a lot, and I can see why it's really useful. And that's pretty much all I got done for week 1, because I actually started week 1 like on a Friday. Because like I said, I had the idea for this project quite late, but yeah. So to start off the next week of development, I start by creating a model, which I don't tend to do first. I tend to do all like the mechanics first, but I really wanted a character in the game. So I created a simple like character model, which is just a wizard to be in the world. It's quite simple, and I rigged it as well in Blender. I added a bone in its hat as well, so I could do some controls in the hat. And as you can see on the animation that I made for it, this little test animation, you can wave, it can look around, and its hat can move too. For the style of the game, I wanted to go for a more simpler style. I say simple because it can look simple, but really it's not. I'm going for a texture paint style where I'm going to like paint on the colours and such, similar to Overcooked, which is one of the main inspirations for the art style behind this game. And I'm nowhere near the level I want to be with it, but as time goes on, I'm sure I'll just get better, I hope. Practice makes perfect, I guess, in these kind of things, but yeah. For what it is right now, I'm very happy with what I've got. It definitely needs work, but it definitely serves its purpose of being a character in the game. And talking about being a character in the game, I feel like I should show you how it looks in the game. So when it's in game, you can just see I've replaced the capsule we had before, the little bean thing, and we've just got the character running around. There's no animations tied to it, it just walks around. I made a simple shader for its face just so I could swap out what face texture I want to show, and it could lead to more fun things like animated face textures. I know that's a thing, I just don't know how to do it. But it's quite fun, and it means there's more customization options in the future too. That's a good start to the second week of development on this project, so I'll catch back up later in the week and we'll see how far we get. So I did some more work on the character, and the main thing I wanted to get sorted out was some animations, because looking at a static character is not that fun. So I made some animations in Blender, something I'm not really that used to, but I thought it would be a good experiment to try out, and to be honest I had a lot of fun doing it. So as I've mentioned previously, one of the main inspirations for the game so far is Overcooked, and I was looking at animations for that, and they're quite simple to recreate, some of it anyway. So I started that. I made an idle animation and a running animation where like when you run your hand kind of go back a bit, kind of like an Overcooked. It's like kind of comical and it looks quite good, I think. So you can see them in Blender, how they look in Unity as well, because they were quite simple to make and setup. There's a video I used, I'll link it down below. It was really useful. You can probably see some here. There's currently no jumping animation because I don't know if I want a jumping animation other than you just move and jump, because I think that looks fine for the style of game I'm going for, but maybe that'll change. I should also note out that none of these animations are final. Even the model itself is not final. I just wanted some kind of cutesy model to use in this little playtest demo thing I'm making. So what I've been working on the past few days has been like a player select screen where the players different players can join and see their character, and in the future where they'd be able to customize their character too. And that's something I love in games, especially with UI. You have like the moving UI where it's just kind of like a scrolling background. I think that looks really nice. And I was like, well, how can I do this? First of all, I made a shader for it. So using Unity shader graph, because I have the URP render pipeline in now, I made like a shader that just goes from left to right and it just like pans an image / texture around for me. And that worked really well until I put it on UI, and then I just could not get it to work, like, at all. I don't really know what the issue was, but it just was not working how I wanted it to. And the issue was I also wanted to mask it, because I wanted to like have like a rounded panel where you'd see the player and then I'd mask the background of that, but it just wouldn't work. So I used a video by TaraDev, who you might know, and the video was like 2 minutes long and it literally took me seconds and it worked straight away. So thank you TaraDev for that video. I'll link it down below as well so you can see it. And yeah, I was really happy with how that looked, and I was able to mask it, so like around that little round board which I made with Affinity Designer. And I wanted the player to show up too, and I was thinking of different ways to do that. Like, would I want to have like the UI in a specific spot so the player's in front of it? Do I want to have like the player in the UI? But no, I went for render textures instead. So when the player spawns, each like spawn point has a camera which is pointing at the player, and they output to a render texture, and then I just masked the render texture to the panel as well, and it worked really well. I was super happy with how that worked. I want there to be customization in the game, but for this gameplay loop I don't need there to be customization. The only thing I wanted was a way to differentiate the players. So I thought the best way to do that would be with colours. So currently, if you can see that it's like a colour of the background of each like player slot is like blue, red, yellow and green. So I want the players' clothes to represent those. So first of all, I just made some materials for each player, because there's going to be 4 players at max, so I just made 4 different materials, and they just take the colour of that background and they just apply it themselves. I have tried to use instances before in Unity, and I didn't really like it, especially coming from an Unreal standpoint of how they work, so I wasn't a massive fan. So basically, I applied all the materials as they were needed, and that worked really well. It worked almost like straight away. The issue was, when I joined like 4 players, it seemed like the last 2 players were the same as player 2 and were controlled by player 2. And that was causing me a lot of issues. I was going through the input system trying to change up that, because maybe I thought like one controller was controlling all of them. But no, I just forgot to change the render textures. So player like 2 camera was being shown on player 3 and 4, so they were looking at player 2. I don't know if that makes sense. When I explain it out loud, it doesn't make sense, but hopefully The next thing I wanted to have, like the final thing, was I wanted to have like a level transition. So when there's at least one player in the game, a little button pops up saying, you know, play game. And you press that and you go into the next level, and it brings around all the players with the colours. I just added on like a don't destroy unload. Again, I don't know if that's the best way of doing things. I think it might be the best way for this, but I mean there might be a better one. If there is, let me know, or I'll have to research for the next iteration of the game. And with that, I mean this took a little longer than I thought it was going to. I can actually start like the next main stage of the project, which is, you know, making the game. Something I kind of put off a little while. I wasn't meant to be doing all this art and stuff, but I thought, yeah, let's do it because it's fun. But yeah, the next part is actually make the game and make the abilities, because that's going to be a really fun challenge to do. I'm really looking forward to it. So we'll probably get on with that in the next week, and we'll catch back up. So, with all like the UI and like the level selection stuff finished, I said I needed to start on for the game. And there was a bit of a break between that recording and this one, but I did. So spells was the main thing I wanted to get done. And I've been calling them abilities, which is really wrong. They are spells, they are wizards, so it's a spell. So for the spells, I started off by making a scriptable object, and the scriptable object basically has some base parameters in it, such as mana cost and speed of the spell, and then some other things like game object to spawn. And I made it so other scriptable objects can inherit from this base one, because I might have an attack spell that does damage, but I might want a healing spell which does not do damage, so they don't both need a damage amount, if that makes sense. Inheritance in Unity is a really cool tool, which I need to use more of. It's very useful, and I'm learning more, and I've learned a lot of it with Unreal, so doing it in Unity wasn't that hard, honestly. Would recommend learning about inheritance. So I started working on the input of the spells as well. So with this, I needed to change up the input system a little bit. So we've got like a menu-based input system, like control scheme, and then a like player-based one. So when you're not in the menu, you can move around, you can call spells. The plan is currently to have like 3 spells each player can use. Like, I guess like a way of thinking about it, like you have 2 abilities to support you and then like 1 ultimate ability is how I see it in my head, but that could change very much so in the future. It's just very early days. And the controls for it are definitely not there. Currently it's going to be like Q, E and R, but I think there are probably going to be better ones which I could do. Probably 1, 2, 3 probably be the best ones to do. I'm also trying to figure out how to get them on the controller as well, so there's different things you need to think about. Basically what happened when I finished this section was you can just spawn the game object, some particles swarm with it, and then a force gets added to it, so it's a projectile, and that's like a fireball spell, which was really easy to do. So for the final thing of development before this video comes out, because there's a lot of content going on to this, so I thought splitting up into 2 videos is actually a better idea. I carried on with the spells, and the first thing I wanted was mana recovery. So you've got mana in the UI as you can see, and I want the mana to recover over time. Which it does. There's just a coroutine which I'm using for now, which could be changed in the future. It's a more tick-based system which I used in another game. But for now the coroutine works very well, and it just basically says if your mana is not full, just refill your mana. And I used a UI which I created at the top to just show off the mana. Again, the UI could be changing. Something I realised I missed from like when I was doing the spells before was they don't collide with anything, and I want them to be able to damage things as well, obviously, because what's the point of like a fireball if it doesn't do any damage? So spells can collide with objects now. And I made an interface for damage as well, which is really useful. So the interface is basically like a way of like saying, okay, here's like a script of like functions and methods, and I think you can have variables too, and you want other classes to inherit this, so they can use those methods too. And what I can do is I can say, okay, if you've collided with something, if this is an attack spell and the thing you've collided with has the damage interface, we can deal damage. And that worked really well. So what I've done is I made a test cube, I gave it a health script, which I made dead quick, and I just said, okay, you use this damage interface, you take damage, you lose health. If you lose all your health, you die, which worked really well. When I talked about this in the Discord, which you should join, some people gave me some suggestions for spells because I asked, and Skeffel suggested an ice wall. And I thought that could be cool. Maybe if you added more mana to it, you could make a different type of ice wall that could be bigger and stronger, which gave me the idea for charging spells, which is something I hadn't actually considered before. So spells now have charge stages, which I added to the base scriptable object because it's really easy to change. And if you hold down a key, it will charge it up, which obviously will use more mana, but the spell will become stronger as well. And I had like a thing to do that in the UI where it kind of like shows the mana depleting, like in a different colour, which looks really good. And I also made it so you don't regen mana, because that was an annoying bug I had, which was really annoying. You could basically just hold down the charge key and just restore mana while charging a spell, which wasn't really good. But yeah, you can charge up spells now and they are a bit stronger. And I made some particles that go around the player as well. And speaking of particles, now, VFX are not my strong suit, so a lot of these will be changing, but the idea I had in my mind was like a toon-like particle style. So I created this by making a custom image of like a white fire mark and then a white ball as well for a fire, which obviously will use for the fire and some smoke to come out as well. And I added them in, and I added some charging particles to the player like I mentioned, which kind of glow around you when you've got a charging spell enabled. And they looked fine. It took a lot of tinkering and they looked okay, but something was missing. And I'm using the universal render pipeline. So I realized, where's my post-processing? So I slapped some post-processing, got some lovely emissive and bloom to the spells, and they looked much nicer. Like the bloom really added a lot. So that was a really good sign to see. Like the mana charging looks good, the fireball looks really nice with the bloom coming out from it, and I was really happy with how they looked. But on that, the basic spell system was basically done. Like I had what I wanted for it to do. I can shoot a fireball off and I can deal damage. The thing I needed next was enemies. But like I said, this Devlog is getting quite long, and I'm not sure how long enemies will take me and then the next stage. So rather than trying to shove that all in one massive video, I'm going to split this off into 2. And thus the video has come to an end. And yes, I did just say thus. Don't know why. Let's talk about what's coming next, so just dead quick. Next plans are enemies, and then I want to do some testing with friends. Those are the next 2 big plans for this like gameplay loop. Or the MVP, I suppose, really is what I want to call it. The minimum viable product. Those are like the 2 main things I want to get done. And when they're done, I can feel pretty happy with seeing how I feel about the game and if I want to take it further. And I've got some future ideas. One of the things I've been thinking about is level design. A tutor suggested to me, like Overcooked, I should have it all on one screen, which would actually be really cool when I think about it. Like, so rather than exploring a dungeon, you're in like a bigger area, which you can walk around and jump around a bit, but you just kind of stay in there and enemies come at you. And the other thing I've been thinking about, this one's kind of important, which I do need to start thinking about that. Maybe I don't want it to just be local co-op. The reason I'm making this game, as I explained, is because I want to play a game with friends. I'm living with them now, and in a few months' time, I won't be, and I won't be able to play it with them, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of the game. So looking at online multiplayer for it would possibly be a better option. And before we end the video, I've got a question for you. What enemies should the player be fighting? Now, obviously, when I think about this kind of thing, my head goes like goblins, zombies, or skeletons, but is there something I'm overlooking, or are those a good option to go for? Please leave down any suggestions you have below in the comments. I want to thank you all for being patient with me, and I'm really hoping you're enjoying this new devlog. I'm a bit rusty with devlogs, hopefully it's alright, and I hope you're doing well, staying safe. Make sure you like and subscribe for the next part, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.